It is so good to be with you all here. I just got to say, this choir, child. See, the problem is I'm a Pentecostal boy, so I grew up in a Pentecostal church, so it took me a lot not to run up and down these. I just want to make sure I'm in the right space. All right, because I'm sorry, Jackie, Reverend Jackie. I felt that. That was amazing, outrageously amazing. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. First, I want to give a shout out to the Reverend Jackie Lewis, who is the embodiment of love. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here, and thank you for my dear friend Natalie, Reverend Natalie, who has been a lifeline to me in my life, and some of the friends who came to represent and support me, Tanya Williams and Ona Wynette, and Monica Williams is here. So I have just so much gratitude to be in this space with all of you. And if you haven't heard this today, I want to be the first one to say it to you, that I love you. And there's nothing you can do to make me love you more or make me love you less, because I see you. I know who you are. I know where you came from. I know that at the beginning of time, life had this amazing idea. Love got turned on so much by this idea that love wrapped itself in itself and called it you. You are the embodiment of love. It's not that you just experience love. It is that you are the essence of love itself. Love in form, love as you, love through you. And isn't it interesting that we live in a time where people don't know who they are? Where people don't even know their name. That we're answering a name that is not even ours. So many of us are answering a name that we're not good enough, that we're not worthy of love. So many of us are seeking maybe the third marriage or the fourth marriage or sometimes the 12th relationship so that we can experience that which we already are. Love, in form, love. Not despite of who you are, but because of who you are. Do you even know who you are? One of my teachers, Jan Van Zant, says it this way: who do you think you're not? Do you even know that love in form, love as you, your walk, your smell, your everything is actually the formation of love itself, love turned on by you, calling you love itself. And it's a heavy thing to be this fabulously loved. Just take a breath. Do you know how loved you are? Enter Baldwin, James Baldwin. James Baldwin, who I believe is the embodiment of love. Every work is about this hard thing to recognize that they are loved, that we are loved. And it's a challenging thing to accept your humanity, to accept who and what God, what life, what Beyonce, whatever the name you choose to call that thing itself, has called you to be. Love. Take a breath. Breathe in love. You know, James Baldwin said this, this wild thing in Giovanni's room at 32 years old. Can you imagine at 32, Giovanni's room was written, and he says this thing that just tore me up, that somebody, said Jacques, your father or mine should have told us that not many people have ever died of love, but so many people, but multitudes have perished and are perishing every hour, and in the oddest places for the lack of it. I don't know about you, but sometimes I forget that I'm loved. Sometimes I forget that I am loved. You know, sometimes I go out in these streets and I be looking for somebody to love me. And isn't it interesting that I am looking from the very thing that I'm looking for? And how many times have we in our lives created situations and experiences to remind us that it is not external? You can't find it out there. It's an inside job. Enter Baldwin. You know, it's really interesting that we're in a moment where there almost feels like an epidemic of lovelessness, where our world seems to be in despair. I don't know if you watch the news, that it appears to be that love is not doing its job, that love is missing. And I wonder what would happen if we found love within ourselves. If we started from the very place that love already is, love as us, love within us, love from us, how could that change our world? That we're living in a moment where everything seems divided. Either you're Democrat or Republican. You're either black or white. You're either for Drake or Kendrick Lamar. I mean, there's so many ways that we are being divided. And what if life is calling forth its lovers to come out? What if love, informed, love as you, love through you, take a breath, is asking you to be that which you already are? Love. Just breathe it in. Can I get some lovers in the room? Some lovers. You know, I remember when I was like 17 years old, my mom, I don't know if I've said this, I am gay, so I just want to put this out right now in this room, in this space. But my mom, at around 17 years old, dropped me right in front of the Black bookstore in South Dallas, Texas, and she said, what you're looking for, I want you to walk all the way to the back, and I want you to walk to the right. And I remember walking into this dark space, this void, this space of, I didn't know why did my mom tell me to go to the back of the room? Doesn't she know that my Star Trek books are in the front of the room? Why am I going to the back? And I remember walking in the back to the right, and it was the Black gay section. And the book I remember picking up was Giovanni's Room. That's where I found and fell in love with James Baldwin. Isn't it interesting that in our lives that sometimes we have to walk through these scary spaces to find the brilliance of who and what we are, to find ourselves? Isn't it interesting that actually darkness, the void, is actually a moment, an opportunity for us to speak our names, to speak the truth of who and what we are? What if the darkness, whatever experience that we are having in our lives, what if the void is actually a moment for us to walk through and discover anew who and what we are? And I remember reading Giovanni's Room, and I remember thinking, wow, I found myself. And isn't it interesting that Giovanni's Room says that what if love, like what we're seeking is love. Not something out there, but within. Take a breath. And my mom in those moments, she couldn't say, baby, I know you're gay. But what she could say is, go to the back, go to the right, and I'm sure that you're going to find yourself. And I did. You know, we're living in a world, for so many of us, we have been in dark spaces trying to find who we are, how we are, what we are. And it may not be about sexuality, it could be about size, it could be about economics, it could be about a variety of things. But what if our lives are calling us, says Baldwin, to be the love that we need? And so what I want to do over the next few minutes that I have with you is give you just 2 points that I think that are really critical for Baldwin. And I want to get out the way. Is that all right? Okay, y'all said, all right, get out the way. I got you, all right, no shade. I felt that. Somebody said brunch is coming. Two thoughts. The first thought is you got to wear your crown. And the second thought is, what if we earned our death? 2 points. You know, one of the things that I remember is there's this great story, this beautiful story about this teacher who was so magnificent. He was so wonderful. This teacher did one thing. He taught people how to meditate, right? He taught people how to go deep within themselves, and what they would do when they went deep, they would discover that they were perfect, that they were beautiful just as they are. So this teacher, people would fly all over the place just to experience this teacher teaching how to go deep within. But there was one problem, is that this teacher had lots of cats. And I don't know if you've ever tried to meditate and a cat jumps on you. Well, it kind of messes up your zen, right? And what this teacher realized is that what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna support people to meditate, to go deep, to find themselves. I'm gonna just tie up the cats so they're out of the way, so that when people go meditate, the cats don't jump on them, right? It makes sense. And so when people go deep within, they discovered who they were, he would simply put the cats away, and it was a perfect thing. Now here's the challenge. 20 years of teaching, this teacher dies, and then 15 years later, people started believing that in order to experience the divine within them, you have to tie up the cats. 20 years later, people are wearing shirts that say, "What would cats do?" because they started worshiping the cats. In 30 years, people then started making these cat temples, and they would only worship a cat, because if you didn't worship the cat, you couldn't find the divine. Isn't it interesting, though, that the beginning of this whole premise problem was that the cats were in the way. The cats weren't meant to be worshiped. You weren't supposed to put a shirt on that said, "What would cats do?" What cats do we worship now? What are the things that we worship in our lives that are in the way of actually experiencing the divine that we are? Isn't it interesting that for some of us, we worship this idea that we have to beg and beseech something outside of ourselves to be whole? What if the whole reason the cats were tied up was that they were just in the way? Isn't it interesting what we do to separate us from who we are? Baldwin says biggest challenge wasn't that he was poor or cold or black. That wasn't it. The challenge was that he accepted a theology that he was less than human. He accepted that the cats were in the way, that you had to worship a cat. That was the challenge. It wasn't any of this other stuff. But how many of us are worshiping the cats? How many of us are worshiping this idea that we're not okay? How many of us believe that there's something wrong with you, that you're unworthy? But it's not true. Your humanity is your birthright. Your humanity, who life or love or joy or peace or ease has created you to be, is the very thing that life is asking you to be. Be that. Any spirituality makes you more of who you are, not less of who you are. And what if we understood that life is in mourning, that we are not bringing our full self to this thing called life? Your humanity, who you are, that which you've been created to be, is your birthright. Own it. It's you. You're it. You're it. Take a breath. And if it scares you, I get it. It's hard to be this fly. I get it. But it's who you are. What if the gift, what if the prize is you? What if, as James Baldwin says, what if you are the lover? What if your humanity is it? What if all these other things are just distractions to distract you from you? that which you are, that which you have been created to be, infinitely created as it. Take a breath. One of my favorite theologians is Nicki Minaj. And Nicki Minaj says this wonderful thing. She says, everybody dies, but not everybody lives. So I'm going to say something that is, it's going to be a little shocking to you. The one thing I know for sure is that no one gets out of this alive. I know it's shocking. I know. It's a lot. And Baldwin really offers us a really interesting premise here. Baldwin says that it's really interesting that the whole root of our trouble, the human trouble, is that we will sacrifice all the beauty of our lives, will imprison ourselves in totems and taboos and crosses and blood sacrifices and steeples and mosques and races and armies and flags and nations in order to deny the fact of death, which is the only fact we have. It seems to me that one ought to rejoice in the fact of death. Now here's where it gets hard. I'm just take a breath. One ought to decide, indeed, to earn one's death by confronting with passion the conundrum of life, that we are responsible to life. It is a small beacon in this terrifying darkness from which we come to and which we shall return, and we must negotiate this passage as nobly as possible for the sake of those who are coming after us. I mean, Baldwin, come on. That ain't fair. One thing I know is that the darkness is sometimes scary. The void, I know it can be scary. But what if the darkness, the void, is the opportunity, as Genesis reminds us, that God spoke into the darkness, to the void, and created new worlds. And for those who are LGBTQ folks, we understand what it means to speak in darkness. For many of you in the room, you understand what it means to have to speak life into that which has been declared a void, darkness. For some of you, I mean, maybe it's your neighbor, maybe not you, you know that there have been moments in your life where you had to speak life into that space which appeared to be dark. But what if that is our opportunity, is to recognize that yes, one day this thing will be different. And what if I'm gonna earn it though? I'm gonna be the star and the brightness. I'm gonna live life in a way that is gonna be so profound. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be so turned on by the love which I am that everyone will have to experience the rainbow that I am, that life is through me, as me, and in me. What if right in this moment, life is calling you to be you? Nothing else. You. What if you were greedy for you, for what you are? Life in form, love in form. And as Baldwin said, the crown has already been paid for. All you got to do is wear it. I wonder what would happen if we wore our crown, wore the life that we have been called to be. Many people have told you maybe that you weren't good enough. Maybe you thought you had to have more zeros in your bank account. Maybe you thought you needed a certain kind of shoes. But what if actually the truth is that the goal, and the gold has always been you? In the beginning of times, love had this amazing idea, wrapped itself in itself, and called it you. What if you wore that name, lived and leaned into that name? And as Baldwin said, this love is your birthright. Don't let them take it from you. And furthermore, Don't take it from yourself. Take a breath. I choose today to live and to lean into the truth of what I am, love. That the very thing that I thought I needed to overcome actually wasn't needing an overcoming. It just needed me to accept that that which I am, all of me, is love. And today I choose to be that love today and forevermore. Will you do it? Oh, I don't know. Will you do it? Yes. Take a breath. Will you be love? Yes. Take a breath. See, what's going to happen is you're going to leave here and somebody's going to ask you and call you out your name. You're going to get an email or a text message and you're going to be like, wait, I don't know who I am. But what if they're supporting you to remember your name, love in form, as the divine in form? Wear it. And so it is. Amen. Thank you.